We are back, and we are back with another heavy hitter with another great topic. So we have Anirudh Kuthiala, Director of Product Analytics at Groupon. Welcome, Anirudh. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Gary.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to hear about your talk. Blueprints for Brilliance. What a great way to start. Framework your way to epic product success. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Awesome. Anirudh, I think you probably have a ton of great content here, so I'm gonna throw up your presentation. Feel free to take it away. I'll see you in a few for questions and answers.
Thanks. Well, hi, everyone. You may call me Ani. I am a director for product analytics with Groupon, and my topic is mainly focused on structured thinking and frameworks. Uh, I'm passionate about this, and I've been trying to apply this back to every area of my life, personal and professional, which is frameworking, structured thinking. If we're doing or we're required to do something over and over again, if it's a cycle, I found it very effective that we create a framework, think it through, and then refine it with time so that we don't start from scratch, especially our thinking every time that we go through that cycle. So, with that, I will kick this off. Well, I'm a director for product analytics. My overall experience in analytics is close to 14 years. Out of everything that I've worked with, primary domains and stakeholders that I've supported are product, business operations, customer experience, and a little bit of marketing. I am with Groupon, and Groupon is a two-sided marketplace. So we have customers and merchants, and the platform brings them together for customers to discover amazing deals and for merchants to increase their value proposition. Interesting fact. I'm very proud of this one, actually. I'm a certified beer porter from Heineken. I was visiting Amsterdam. I found out that you can get certified with an actual certificate sign and a picture, and I went for it. What I didn't realize was that it's not a fun activity. They actually reject a lot of people. So you got to keep your glass at 70-degree angle and pour it, get the right proportions, and then you get a certificate. So proud to have accomplished this in my second attempt. Now, let's jump right into the topic. Again, talking about frameworks, talking about structured thinking, but here's what led me to develop this framework and put it to practice at what we do. Now, I'm sure all of you have experienced this, but developing a product, irrespective of the industry, it takes a village. There are so many teams involved. You've got not just product managers, you've got software engineering, you've got data engineering, you've got marketing, sales, your UX team, analytics. Clearly, it takes a lot of people, but lack of clear prioritization, ineffective project management, limited data, or poor change management practices, or even insufficient time dedicated to ideation, like they're among the top challenges that kind of restricts the effectiveness of a product. You might have a great idea, it might have a great potential, but if we don't follow a framework to kind of launch it and monitor its effectiveness and really proactively intervene to enhance, then in a bigger picture, it might not be effective. It would lose its effectiveness. Now, here are the questions that I found myself asking from time to time. And do you find yourself asking these questions? Because if you're asking these questions at a later stage, which means you've already launched something and you're asking it, that's an opportunity right there to improve. Clarity on all these three questions should be established before development takes place. Now, simple questions like, how do I restrict my dependency on intuition, guesswork, and fragmented data? And by that, I mean, sometimes you would have gone through a cycle of thinking that this is a great idea, but you don't have any data. It's just a gut feeling. You don't have any data to prove it or even measure it or identify an opportunity. If you have answers to these three questions, they form up confidence. And confidence is super important because the last thing you want to worry about when you're developing or launching something is I wasn't sure, right? Secondly, a very popular one, how can you connect your idea to a North Star? Now, some companies have North Stars, some companies have OKRs. In the end, this is about the idea that you have. How does that connect to your business growing? Not every idea can connect directly, and in my opinion, shouldn't connect to the North Star directly because it becomes very difficult to attribute the benefit back to your idea. There should be a layer of success indicators or success KPIs or key performance indicators, as we call them. Well, I evaluate my teams and outcome and not output, right? Now, just like the teams I talked about earlier that it takes to develop a product, everyone's success and growth in your organization depends on how effective their contribution is. So it's super important for all teams involved in building that project to know how the product is positioned on a bigger picture. We've gone through cycles where, or I hear examples about, we developed something, it took 3 months, we did it, it's great, but everybody who's involved in building that, they just moved on to the next thing. They lack transparency on, okay, what are they working on? Especially the engineering teams, like when they're working on, how does that connect to a bigger picture? How did their work impact business growth? On a personal level, it's super important for motivation as well, because otherwise it all becomes, I'm working on a sprint, delivered, next. That cycle can be monotonous. But if I know what I'm working on and how does that impact business growth, that's right there. I know the value that I as an individual, a team as an individual is contributing towards. That's very important for employee experience in any organization as well. But that's a side product. And lastly, what is the best approach to evaluating the effectiveness of the product? This is not just about you launch something and you look at some KPIs. It's also opportunity sizings. It's also defining a success matrix. It also defining a sanity matrix for which you can rule out cannibalization. It's also looking at engagement matrix. Now, all of these are super crucial before the launch, not during, and definitely not after we launch. So these are the questions that actually led me to develop an assessment framework. Now, in short, what does that framework do? How do we solve that? To me, it's simplifying decision-making for our teams. Integrate structured thinking in product development cycles. What does that mean? Is when we are developing something, just stop looking at a bigger picture, just break down your entire decision-making into steps. It's like a ladder. If you want to go from point A to B vertically and you have a ladder, yes, you're thinking about the end, but you take one step at a time. Now, when you take one step at a time, it forces you to critically think at the same time. That's the side product. You look at each and every stage in detail, and that's the opportunity here. Prioritize ideas for maximum impact. I'm sure we've gone through cycles where we have 10 ideas, promising, but putting data next to it, having an idea on what does it mean for a bigger picture helps you prioritize. Now, not saying all 10 ideas can go together at the same time. Everybody has limited resources, so a prioritization decision is super crucial because you want to spend time and resources on something that has a higher impact. So something that can give $1 million in 3 months versus $20,000 in 3 months. Once you have these data points, that decision to take on what to do first is very simple because now you have a data point. And that's also a good example of data-driven decision-making. And thirdly, after you launch, you should be able to confidently determine which investments to pursue, pivot from, or discontinue. Just like we look at stock investments, right? You look at your portfolio and say, okay, stock number 1 doing well. Guess what? I'm going to invest more on it because it's giving me a good return. Stock number 2, okay, it's fine. It's not as per my expectations. You know what? I'm going to wait for it for another 2-3 weeks. 3, okay, this is way worse. I am losing money every day. I'm going to just pull the plug, remove my investment. That thinking you can apply to everything that you do as well. Because in the end, Data-driven decision-making should enable you to decide these amongst these three options: what to pursue, pivot from, or discontinue. Now, let's get to the framework. Product assessment. Stage one, this is basic. You identify your opportunity. This is where you start thinking of, here's something that I can go ahead and enhance. Remember, this is not a bug, because if there's a bug, something that's supposed to happen and it's not happening, it should bypass that framework because you got to fix it. But this is opportunity identification. Stage two is your ideation. This is where you go ahead and brainstorm ideas, involve people that are invested in making this successful. But simple questions like, what should be the opportunity size? What should be the success metric? How we should evaluate the effectiveness of this? How much time do we think this will take? Do we have the skills, talent, or the technology to develop this? Based on that, you can put a prioritization framework. So on the y-axis, I have business value. On the x-axis, if you put effort, t-shirt sizing by engineering, for example, or just normalize that rating from 1 to 10. On the lower left block, you have quick wins. Go for it. On the top left block, you have nice to have. Go for it. On the top right are your big bets. And on the bottom right are what I call ineffective investments. You want to proceed with caution. But again, this is a good example of data-driven decision-making. Before deploying, you have a good idea of what are you working towards. Stage 4, traditional development. Involve all the teams who are invested in making it a success. And that's actually point 5, my bad. But evaluate, enhance, pivot, or discontinue. Going back to the same example, don't wait for 6 months or 1 year to see what's the effectiveness. Get your analytics teams involved and look at, with the current trajectory, what are we looking to make? Because that gives you a good sense of, is it going to land where you thought it would? How far off? Or is it beating your estimates? That gives you confidence to take decisions on, do you want to enhance it? Do you want to pivot? Or do you want to discontinue? And this is a cycle. This framework is a cycle. If you find a problem, go back to stage 1 and then work on enhancement. And with that, I will leave you guys with one of the favorite things that I like to say to my teams is making something complex is simple because we just keep adding stuff on top of another, but simplifying something complex is difficult. This is a one-time investment, but the return is 10x, both short-term and long-term. With that, I come to an end. Happy to take any questions.
Ani, thank you so much for that. Really, really appreciate it. We are close to time, but one quick kind of practical question for you. I'm a big fan of frameworks, mental models. I use those in my day-to-day on the regular. One of the challenges is getting groups of people aligned around a framework. Any thoughts on that? Any tips? How do you overcome challenges?
Sure, that's a good question. I would say the groups involved connect the impact of your product to an outcome. So if I have different groups, in the end, it's about making them successful at their jobs. If you have data, say, hey, this has a potential to bring this much or improve this success KPI, because everybody is aligned on a bigger picture. In my experience, that makes it easier to get alignment. It does not start with, I have an idea and we can do this. It always should end with that this idea, by doing this, has a potential to impact or change this much. That brings everybody looking at the outcome and a bigger picture. And that makes it easier because everybody can take that decision in the end, that is it a good one or not? Again, prioritization, maybe yes or no, but at least it gets everybody together aligned.
Awesome. Perfect. Ani, we're at time. I'm sure everybody listening knows how to find Groupon. If they don't, they probably got bigger problems. But if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Ani, what's the best way to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. Just search me, Anirudh Kuthiala. And any follow-up questions, happy to take on there. Any use cases where you've tested it and it didn't work or it worked, I'd love to hear those.
Perfect.
Yeah, Gary, thanks for having me, and thanks
No,
for
no,
participating.
thank you. The pleasure's all ours. Really appreciate it. Hot Takes Live is only a success because of speakers like you. So thank you once again. For everybody listening, another short break. We will be right back with one of my favorite speakers, Neil Desai from Paddle. And he's going to talk about boosting LTV or dying trying. So definitely something I want to hear about. Hold on tight. We'll be back in a few minutes.